Hey everybody, I'm Agree,
I'm Harrison.
and this is Bottom Line Design. And today we have with us Kim Alban. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Cool. So Kim, yeah, do you want to fill the audience in on who you are, what you do, what you're about?
Sure, yeah. First, thanks for having me. So my name is Kim Alban, and I am from Queens, New York, born and raised. And I am a product designer currently, but I have a heavy background in mixed media, a lot of multidisciplinary fields that I've previously explored. So I think we'll get into that a bit. So I won't share too much, but most recently, really delving into AI. I'm not ChatGPT, even though that was recently announced. Like you could tell if you use ChatGPT if it uses Delve. But I am a human and I only use that word. But yeah, happy to be here.
Amazing, amazing. So Kim, I want to actually start with a little bit about your story as a an educator in the design space. Because I feel like you know Harrison definitely got me onto like your Instagram and the content you've been producing. It's so informative and actionable. So like, do you want to talk just a little bit about like your journey as a creator?
Yes, yeah. I think it's a very long journey, but all the while, I think at the point, the lens that I'm trying to focus in on is that, you know, the one constant thing that we probably, hopefully, most people can agree on is that things change over time. Having having been a creative in the industry for a just over a decade, more than a decade, honestly, you're going to see some things. And I think my approach to change is always learning and continuing to learn and adjusting to the times. Technology changes so much. And as a product designer, within the past few years, we've seen a real emergence of AI, a lot of other trends, maybe that have slowed down a bit, like NFTs and crypto and stuff, um, and Web3. So a lot of these changes that have been bubbling up to the surface and been in front of us, I've been along that journey as a designer, but also as someone that's learning as these new technologies appear in different ways, learning, staying up with them, and sharing as much as I can. And that's kind of what I've just aligned myself into creating content around, sharing what's going on in the moment, how I can apply it, where I'm at in this journey, and through that lens, really, that you know things change all the time. And I think what's important as a creative, as a designer, as anyone that's really interested in what's currently up to date, is keeping up with it and how you can apply it to whatever field that you're in.
You touched on something where I wanted to like just double click into. There are so many tools coming out in the AI space, and you do a great job at showing your vulnerability to your viewers of like, I don't know how to use this, but like I'm going to give it a go, guys. Like, here are the steps that I did just to learn like one of those tools a day. Like I feel almost as though founders and product designers are overwhelmed, right, by the selection. How do you go about, like wading through the noise to kind of find the right tools for today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the reason I say it's great is because should you wait or should you test it now?
Mhm.
For me, the I guess the rate at which new tools are being released is what I would feel far less than where we were at last year. Last year was like almost hundreds of tools being developed weekly, and it was overwhelming. It is overwhelming. But I think at this point, a year out after ChatGPT 3 was launched around, I don't want to say Thanksgiving time. Um, we're now seeing a lot of trends of how to use these tools and how workflows are being developed with the use of some of these tools. So I think immediately when I see a tool, I think of its applicability. How can I use this? How can I adjust this into my like workflow currently? What can it evolve or help me with in general. And that's like the general lens that I try to use to look at new technologies and new tools. It was a bit controversial, using Midjourney to visualize UI layouts and things like that. It still is, but we're seeing a lot more people do it now. And I remember when I was just like flirting with the idea. I made like a really quick reel around it about how to make a web, like the cover of a website or a website just using Midjourney. Early, maybe last year, there was a lot of like negativity around it because it wasn't really widely adopted just yet. But we're now seeing it embedded in lots of different tools, lots of different in many different ways, but a bit more repetitive now than even about a year ago.
You're seeing like a lot of, you're talking about like backlash, and it reminds me of Apple's latest commercial that is not going to be airing on TV, where they take a huge hydraulic press and they just crush like arcades, trombones, like
Piano.
I'm like, this hurts to watch. It was so tone deaf. AI is kind of just like doing the same thing, and for you to post that, I would imagine that a lot of designers had a lot of fear watching that. But at the same time, any founder watching your content may see opportunity. Designers right now, I feel as though they are overwhelmed in the sense of, I have to not only be a product designer, but I have to do visual, animation, UX research. The list goes on and on. Where do designers fit in today's landscape if they are trying to be all that or just one thing? And how should a founder be thinking about where to include a designer in with AI in the back as a backdrop?
Yeah. Immediately from the designer perspective, I think we are more accustomed to design generalists, product design generalists, or like UX generalists. You will have to know a lot of UX research terms, different types of research methods. And that's just the basics because you will work with UX researchers. And it is one of your interview kind of questions that you will get asked. So doing your own research there to be up to date with the field is always necessary, right? But where does AI sit in the area of what designers should know? I think it's sort of split twofold. One, how I can use this tool workflow to speed up my current processes or even help me learn. Like, that's great. Even if you're using it to learn about a new technology that you're working with. Working with engineers can be tricky. There's so many languages that they know, databases, what have you. There's so many documents that get created by engineers and other people that aren't specifically UX designers, but it can be a lot of jargon to just sift through. And working in software design is a lot. And I think one immediate way is just using these tools to help you ramp up to getting to know a lot of these terms, getting to know different areas outside of your own. And then the other side is how can I best design for an AI product? What do I need to know there? How can I also better work with my counterparts, like your PMs, like your engineers? What do they know? What are my gaps of knowledge that I need to become familiar with because this is a new area, it's a new paradigm, essentially. And how can I best serve, of course, the people that I'm actually designing for? And there are skills that UX designers should be learning now and getting more accustomed to outside of just using the tools. If you're very interested, of course, in designing for products that have large language models, in this example for one. And founders, it's tough, right? I would say if founders are really creating AI products, then it's always important for designers to be aware of the technology that they are designing for. It is always helpful, just like how we had to learn responsive design and what that means and for what surface we're designing for, then we should become very familiar with the surface that we will be designing and utilizing for. There's so much to know there. but making you a better collaborator, designer, partner, thinker is really getting comfortable with the technology, to know the constraints, to know how to create the best experience that you can.
Totally, totally. And are you finding like that there are common classes of unsolved problems in UX with AI first products?
Yeah. Yes. So immediately when some of these large language models came out, within maybe the past year, but early last year, it was like opening up a chatbot and just seeing a blank wall, right? I don't know where to start. And large language
Mhm.
models, they're a black box. There is so much that you can get out of it. But if I don't know where to start, then how can I make this useful for me? So some of the design elements that have been rolling out, and you may notice them, is like these chips. They're sort of tips to help you start.
Right.
Um, exactly.
Yeah, you like
That
tap it,
was a,
like we'll just
yeah,
inject a prompt into your input box, right?
yes,
It's like
exactly.
spurring the imagination of how to use a new technology. And just real quick, that reminds me, I think I brought it up on another BLD episode, but like this idea around when Siri first came out, um, back when it was novel, they would give all these prompts in the beginning so that you could activate your imagination as the viewer. But nowadays, I feel like GPT can do so much more. It can't be captured in little prompts because most of the benefits of AI come in the form of like API calls, right? For
Right.
like hospitals trying to solve or compute something. Anyway, sort of
Yes,
remind.
exactly. So who does the best question I could bring up is like, whose responsibility does that fall on? Is that ever the user's fault? Never. No, it's on the designers, it's the people creating the software. So how can we lead, how can we lead the people using it to, as the horse to the water, or like, how can we
Yeah.
best represent that in design to help them out? Because prompt engineering with tricks and techniques, you can do so much more. So back to the LLM being the black box, can we, instead of showing them a blank wall, can we instead of show them like the little chips, like the little hints or tricks, or can we just start the conversation off? Hey, we know you, like, let's say this is a large language model that's helping you to exercise. Hey, I'd love to help you get started. Here are some 5 things that I need to know about you before I suggest you something. And that's,
Hmm.
already there, that's like a combination of a prompt, a few prompts put together, that you're not asking the user to be a prompt engineer. You are preloading that into your LLM to start the conversation off, because that's what you need to know, and that's a personalized experience.
So in your future world, it's really about inputs and then like inputs that curate a personalized experience to the place where the person may not even need prompts at that point because it's so personalized that maybe it's actually GPT that's starting the conversation versus the designer or the founder.
Right. And some of them, so like, I don't know if you've used Pi. It's kind of like it, I think the slogan for Pi is that it's kind of like your friend or like therapist. It's very conversational.
Hmm.
It starts the conversation off, I believe, even when you like immediately go to the website. Um, and it in that sense, because I think the base of Pi is to talk to you and talk with you like it's a friend. It's kind of easing that. It's breaking the ice for you by starting it off. So in these
Hmm.
personalized experiences where we're using LLM a that is specific to that person's wants or needs, because for example, a lot of these like Claude or ChatGPT, they're very broad use cases, right? You can use them for anything, but we're talking about niche LLMs that are for a specific want or need, then it's going to be tailored, and its look and feel and tone is going to be of that niche. And that goes down to, yeah, who your audience is, why are they there? How do you want them to start the conversation, the LLM? How do you want them to start the conversation? What do we need to know to get them started. Because after all, we're not trying to bait them and have them stay and talk for hours, or if that's your use case, fine. But we still want people to get to do what they need to do and then be on their way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think that one of the themes that you're touching on here is something I've also noticed about usability or unsolved usability challenges with LLM products is that it felt like more for the earlier versions of the internet, the usability or digital products, like the usability challenge was almost happening more often at an interface level, where it was like kind of like, I don't know how to take this action, right? Or like it's hard for me to get this thing to do what I want it to do. Whereas with LLMs, it feels a lot more like there's the black there's the one version of the analogy which is the black box. There's another version I think about which is the Pacific Ocean. So like you know that Twitter meme about how dudes are always thinking about the Roman Empire. So my girlfriend and I like to say as a counter to that, we are constantly thinking about the Polynesian arrival to Hawaii. That like just dudes took like dogs and coconuts on a canoe into the Pacific Ocean and then managed to find this tiny dot of land, right? And it feels like LLMs are the Pacific Ocean.
Is that really how it started?
Yeah, they literally the dogs and coconuts canoes like across the Pacific Ocean. They got to Hawaii.
The real MVP is the dog.
Of course,
Yeah. They smelled it.
Right? Like, and they're just hanging out. But like, yeah, LLMs do feel like it's like the usability challenge is how do you get a user from their beach that opens out to the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii, right? Where it's like there's going to be pineapples there,
and like what set them in that direction?
Right.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, what exactly? Why are they even showing up to this LLM in the first place?
Why a canoe?
Oh,
why not a bigger boat? How many dogs?
Yeah, how many dogs? Right? How many? But yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's like a value unlock question with LLMs right now.
Right.
Yeah, which is just it's very fascinating. Have you found any other designs or design patterns beyond like the chips and the prompt nudges that have helped you've like noted and been like, oh, I really like the way they solve that usability problem with like LLM products?
Yeah, I would say I always say this: the Meta Ray-Bans, the Ray-Bans by Meta. They're amazing, and I'm an early adopter of their multimodal. It's like feature that is slowly, I believe it's still slowly rolling out, or it will be rolled out very soon for all, the rest of the Meta Ray-Bans. But it goes back to just conversation. Like, how can their AI in this example help me out and get started? And they do a pretty good job at announcing like what you can do within the app first. The learning curve there, I would say, is that you still do have to remember how to trigger the AI within the glasses. But the multimodal feature is really wonderful because whenever I'm around anything that I want to learn more about, I say, hey, Meta, look and tell me more about this. You just stand still. So the camera is, right in front of whatever it is that you're looking at. It'll take a picture, it'll load a little bit, and then it'll give you the answer. And it's so far the most enjoyable experience, at least because I'm still present and I could still continue doing what it is I need to do. And I could carry on the conversation about that image, even, I believe it's like maybe like 10 or 20 minutes after that. I haven't like tested it ultimately to see, did you forget? But it's an enjoyable experience, right? Where you're just like, okay, I learned about this thing. I got my answer, and maybe I'll ask it again in a few hours or whenever it is the next time that I want to learn more about this thing.
Yeah, it's seen in your content, like using those glasses to identify art. I can only imagine like the field day someone would have at a museum, just asking all these types of questions. Like, where are you finding wearables are going to expand into like everyday life that are like infused with LLMs or edge AI or just something like local?
Yeah. It's for me, I've always had had the interest in augmented reality. I still love it. I still do. So a combination of augmented reality or mixed reality, even with AI in a wearable that is close to us as glasses can be, would be ideal. Like you want something that doesn't really take away from what your present moment is. So I think a healthy balance of those two, like the usability and the utility of the product, is really what's going to take off from there. I know we're seeing R1, we have the human pin, and I did definitely anticipate this year being a year for wearables, but I wasn't I wasn't backing away from the Medi Ray-Bans being my favorite. I had a feeling that the Rabbit device, well, I believe it's the R1, I think it is called Rabbit, wasn't going to be extremely successful because of this trust factor that I don't think we as people have all there with AI, and the fact that AI is still hallucinating, has moments. Um, it's asking you to put all your trust into this one device, and this one device will carry out all of these actions. And I think that we still have, as people, this habit of wanting to double check or like verify, and we should always be verifying the answers that we get back. So that's why for a lot of the wearables that we will see rolling out, one of the best things that I can tell people to do is just ask it something simple that you can verify first. See if it can answer it correctly, and then carry out to like bigger tests or like bigger questions where you could still verify, but maybe you will have to Google it or, thereafter. And the approach with the R1 and the Humane Pin is that it's small, you can wear it, right? I'm not too sure about the R1 exactly, but it's still, for me, I think that we're on a path of more smaller devices, and I think glasses is perfect. They're not even, you can make them prescription glasses, the Meta Ray-Bans, but they are also alternatively sunglasses. So
Yeah.
they are something that you will be carrying around, something that's realistic, that everyone will need. That, along with the utility, and the usability, great usability, will just be that healthy balance. So I'm really curious to see what other devices will turn into gadgets that house these AIs, but I think we will definitely see more rolling out this year.
Do you think that they're all going to be coming back to the same set, like the finite set of use cases? Because I feel like while all these new capabilities are coming out, the people that they're trying to serve are still the same people that were like living, like in caves like a few thousand years ago.
I almost feel as though it's like the people that are adopting the R1, which has a little bit of controversy around it being like a scam. Did you hear about this?
No.
Anyway, yeah, Google it, but I don't want to say too much more on it. But people that have bought the Rabbit and have bought the pin, they say it's just junk. That like they were using it because they're technologists and they just want to
Oh,
see
like
the
the
future.
MKBHD review?
Yeah, like this is the
Yeah.
worst product, and then you look at like the Vision Pro. It's I think we can all agree technology is going there, but for that to be a landmark device over a decade later, like that's the first product that Apple releases. It's like, is this really like, is spatial computing really where we're headed? Is really this like the interface? Inherently, it almost seems to contradict Apple's philosophy, which is collaborating over liberal arts and to enhance like what you do naturally. I saw someone just here the other day using it, and the person was totally isolated from everyone else. And then I saw someone on the subway. I'm like, you definitely don't have an internet connection, and
Oh, yeah.
you're also like isolating out everyone else. So where does spatial computing fit in? I thought that the iPhone's AR was going to be the viewfinder into that world, but now some companies are saying it's going to be a headset that's actually the viewfinder into this world, this new place of spatial computing.
It's tough. It always brings me back to these augmented reality contact lenses. They were a startup. It's called Mojo Vision. I don't think they are continuing forward, but I I don't think headsets is our future. I think that it's a component right now, but I think, and I don't know how far into the future, um, I don't think devices will be it. I think we will always be striving to move towards slimmer and smaller and thinner devices that are just less isolating. They
Hmm.
are more of setting the environment for itself. So there are some rumors that Apple is like creating more of an ecosystem. Maybe they are on the path for a smart home in general or environments, whatever that might be. It would be really interesting because they were going into the realm of creating a car. They have pivoted away from that. But that would fit the narrative, a narrative of creating a full environment or ecosystem for wherever you are. I think that would be probably more of what we see in the future. Less screens, more personal, very personalized experiences. I'm also curious whether that will be glasses or some type of smaller device,
Mm.
but I I can't see us moving more towards bigger headsets in general. That would be funny though.
That would be funny. I mean, that kind of, I mean, what you guys are both saying sounds like a notch in the direction in favor of the Meta Ray Bans, right? Because they solve this contradiction of collaborativeness and socialness and connectivity, like social
But it also
connectivity.
has awkwardness. Like
Hmm.
today, the choice of medium is fingers. Meta sunglasses is and Siri and OK Google. That's the medium of voice. I don't know about you, but I find it incredibly awkward walking down the street and saying like, "Hey Siri" or something.
Yeah, but it's like it's less weird, I think, to have the Meta Ray Bans than it probably is to have like the Apple Vision Pro, like
Yes,
giant, like, burrito on your over your eyes, like.
yes, absolutely. It's so funny because like the first, I think, area that I thought technology was weird was those like giant Bluetooth uh, phones that
Oh
were like
yeah,
in the early 2000s. You were like, who's gonna wear that? But here we are with
yeah,
the
Yeah.
AirPods. And when I have the Meta Ray Bans, which double up as AirPods, by the way, it just and they're very thin. They don't look clunky. Their whole frame is very thin, and they look like regular sunglasses. So it makes you feel a lot less um, awkward and vulnerable in public.
yeah. It's not as intrusive, right? Like you know when someone has the Vision Pro on, like,
Yeah,
and they're shouting it from the mountaintops, right? They're letting everyone know I am this person, right?
yeah,
But I don't think. Yeah, I agree. I don't think like that's the future. I think it's much more subtle. Good design's always subtle, isn't it?
yes.
How might just a shift in direction, like how
Mhm.
might founders, like what advice might you give to founders that are thinking about how to leverage AI for their own company, their sales motion, their ops functions in a thoughtful way?
One of the best examples that I could think of is, have you ever heard of the company called Honey? I think it's called,
the,
it's
the
called,
the one that got bought by PayPal,
I think so.
Yeah,
the
They,
Chrome.
yeah, yes,
yeah,
yes. So like the whole thought of Honey was that it takes a habit that we do when we are trying to find the best price for something. And we have like 20 tabs open. And they were like, you know what? We can make a Chrome extension of it and find the best price for you. So the way that I think founders should approach AI within products is looking for, what kind of workflows can we put together that will make sense and help people out actually. So like it always goes back to what are people doing right now that we can work out and make faster, better, um, just streamline that in general, which kind of brings me over, and we're not there yet, to agents, right? Like this whole there's a really big like aura around AI agents and what they can carry out and do for us. we're not there yet. We don't have anything like that. We have small things that kind of hint at what it could be. But I think for founders, it's always going back to what habits can we consolidate or just automate right now with AI. And that would be really great. Versus we have a product, let's just try and slap a LLM on it and, say we are with every other company that's doing that.
I
Oh,
feel
right.
like okay, anyone who grow up watching SpongeBob.
I
I
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, so there's the scene where he's like sitting down to write a paper, the episode where he's sitting down to write the paper, and he's like keeps procrastinating, and then he like goes crazy, and he's like finally, but he just gets like a medieval style the.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I
I
feel like
remember
I
that.
feel like a lot of AI like slap-ons are basically like a product requirement doc written by a PM where he or she is like, and it's like the only requirement is there's going to be a Sparkle logo. That's all we figured out so far.
Yes,
It's like,
yes,
right?
exactly, exactly. And it, with every new piece of emerging technology, is like, how can we do this already without that? Do we really need that? Um, for founders, it's really important, of course, to think of that before actually creating and developing products. But the thing, and I think the issue is currently is that we're trying to put a lot of AI within products that probably might not even need it. Like we are just doing fine without it. And I heard someone said it. One of you guys just said it, Zapier. There's also another, there's also another tool that is similar to Zapier in sort of connecting a few apps for you, creating these workflows for you to do something with AI. So I think Zapier has a workflow for every email that you get, if you hook it up to your Google Mail, you can send a follow-up email or like store that email within a spreadsheet, and then it's sort of creating those leads and adding that onto your sheets for you. So those are really great mini examples for someone that is really, really busy or like small teams. But how can we build that out further and to other areas? I think is a really great place to start for founders as well.
You bring up some like interesting examples, like those jobs in tomorrow's world, should those types of jobs be on the designer to create? Like, I personally find that a lot of more of my senior buddies that are designers, they are moving into like ops design, back of office design, clawing back revenue from the inside versus working on the customer experience. I'd love to just like hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can't say I'm seeing that too much. Maybe I'm just in a different area, but that is really interesting. I think in terms of AI, if the designer is working more, I think in the sense of tools like Zapier or in that field of creating workflows, that makes a lot of sense. Really understanding system design and what we're actually creating to carry that out. For more of, I think it always also goes back to where are you at as a designer? Like what is your kind of future looking like? Is it the managerial route that you're looking to steer into, or are you thinking of staying IC into the principal kind of designer area? Um, but I think that is an interesting point to bring up for a lot of designers curious in whether they want to do more of ops or more of consumer facing, really being for consumers and calling them users, but yeah, just people, of course, that are actually using it.
Yeah, I feel like there's almost like if you put the entire discipline through like a centrifuge and like force it to like pull out like the two essences, there's taste and order,
Yeah.
right? And it's not even like they're opposite things, but like the ops design is like the kind of
Brutalism
thing.
box.
Yeah, kind of like taste is like what I feel like a big part of what the end customer experience is like, and sort of the customer feeling like trusted, that them building trust off the fact of like, oh, these people know what they're doing, like Apple,
Yeah.
right? Or like Steve Jobs's version of Apple. And then there's order, which is that sort of like methodicalness and almost like fine grained machining that, I like some of the stuff that you're talking about, right? Where like the designer now is actually like designing the back office,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a well-ordered back office is hard to get right. And oftentimes getting it right actually is not necessarily a question of taste. It's just literally like, how organized or tidy is everything.
The role of the designer is changing from the view of the founder, I feel. I think founders are now beginning to look at designers as not just people that are great in Figma, which is not the mark of a good designer, but someone that can thought partner with them and try to find avenues in their everyday processes and workflows to like tighten up, and that to me is very special. It's a very special narrative because it bucks against maybe like the non AAA founders that are looking at designers now of, do you know Jitter? Do you know Spline? Do you know Figma? Like, it's like no one designer can
You're just
do
like
all
a
that stuff.
forklift operator.
Yeah, you're a forklift operator. It's like, how much can you lift? Minimum is 70 pounds.
I'm Jitter certified. Like,
Yeah.
Shout out Jitter, by the way. They're great. They're back in YC, but like it's more like actually, stakeholders looking at designers as someone who will click buttons for them versus as someone who will actually come in and
bring value,
therapize, kind of chiropractor thinking.
Yeah. So here's what I'll add to that, and I think you touched on this earlier, and I forgot to bring it up, is that AI is making us, as a whole, everyone, just able to do so much that we previously had no knowledge in, right? Creating art, creating designs, creating what animations, videos, what have you. So many things. So, and this was a great point that was brought up in last year's config is, and it was by, I'm forgetting it, but what he said was that it's raising the bar, right? So if we add all of these AIs to lots of the tools that we're using in our day-to-day, it's enabling PMs to design. It's enabling engineers to design. So what is the differentiator? Like, what helps you stand apart from everyone who will be able to, your PM included, to design, right? And it always comes down to, I think, strategy. Strategy, thinking about the business, where you fit as a company. And I think that designers that are always equipped with really great strategy, thinking kind of mindsets and skills and business forward in general, thinking is always going to be a lot more helpful to a company, founders and teams versus someone that is only really great at learning one or two tools or tools in general.
So how do you recommend then someone like who is a designer looking to grow as a designer, grow as a strategic thinker or a strategist?
Yeah. I would say, and there are lots of great books out there. I believe there's a really great book that I loved by Jamie Levy, and I believe it is called UX Strategy. But it's really looking at the competitors in the business with a magnifying glass, really getting in the weeds of what the business is about, what sets it apart, and looking at the market. And in doing a lot of that homework, you will see, and just doing competitive analysis to start off, is taking a really honest look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities that you can have there and assess. And that's just like the ground level kind of work. But also staying in a company for sure and growing with the company as a designer, with a team, and learning the company is really, really helpful as well.
How might a designer, like, I guess two-part question, like how does a designer, how can, like, I have trouble with that because new designers right now, they almost feel a sense of like, I'm not rewarded for loyalty, at least in like, corporate capitalist America, right? Like it's every like 2 to 3 years just cycling out to get a, a, a modest pay raise. How should designers like talk to themselves in a way where it's like healthy, like I do need to stay here to sink my teeth into this design challenge because it's a multi-month, multi-year long thing if I want to create something meaningful? How do founders set up those designers for success and reward that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's hard in today's economy. In this economy, it's really tough, the job market as a whole, and has been for the past few years. I think it shouldn't. I don't know if the proper lens is to look at it as rewards and loyalty, but more as growing. So really great managers, really great founders have sort of uh, just like journeys or 30, 60, 90-day kind of plans set up, right? Maybe it's just a manager that's creating that tradition of this is the kind of expectations that we have set out for you of what you should probably learn and potentially accomplish. Here's like a general timeline of these things, but also rubrics. Rubrics are really helpful in making a designer aware of where they stand, why they're there, what they should know, what they should work towards, and ideally try to aim towards the next level that they may currently be in. And that just helps you so much more. It's less you just know what to work on to then ask for that next promotion. Okay, so I'm a level 1. Level 2s are more design system savvy, or they're creating, vision for the product, whatever it may be within that rubric. But I think that is insanely helpful when the time comes to ask for promotion. And then in terms of rewards, I think it really comes back to culture, always culture. You know, I don't know if this is the norm within many companies, but of course, giving credit, um, asking for given credit within I work within Coursera, and we have lots of design reviews. We have design kind of like all hands and things, and it's a really great place to share what your project is, what you've learned with the project, things that you've overcome, and it's a really great place to give thanks and also it not really accept thanks, but accept the roses that of course people are acknowledging of your hard work. So I think having these types of moments sprinkled in within the workplace and culture is really, really helpful overall.
Yeah, and I also actually I wanna present like an alternative path to that as well that starts from the first thing that you said, Kim, about today's job market. Because I think that like it's one thing we're also noticing because we're like very, very deep at this point into the design labor market and understanding like the livelihood opportunities for designers is that there's like one path where the designer becomes like better at interfacing with the organization that they're employed by, and their employer ideally also learns how to cultivate an environment that helps designers grow. There's this other path that I think that I'm seeing a lot of designers are starting to choose, where they're realizing that there may be, while it may be very difficult, maybe the hardest thing they've ever done, going independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's paradoxical about this that I'm noticing, and I'd love to hear your guys' take on it, is that it seems like there's certain types of design work that are very natural to de-scope from a core team, where there's a lot of that work available for more like freelancer independent thinkers or independent workers. But then on the flip side, it like that very act of them being responsible for their own livelihood encourages designers to think like a stakeholder or think like a business owner as well, if
Do
that
you
makes any
think that
sense.
that's just like inherent to the discipline, or do you think that designers are just there first
What do you mean?
with like going out? Like you rarely hear about get an engineer freelancer on subscription.
Yeah.
It's only $4,500 a month.
I do think so. I'd love to hear your take on this, Kim,
Or an
too.
office manager.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, we missed your birthday cupcakes. Sally wasn't into that. So sorry.
Sally was into say you can dispute it with a chargeback. No, like I love to hear your take.
We
on
love
this,
dumb
Kim.
jokes.
Like it does feel like every organization will always need design, but they may not always need certain types of design continuously. Like brand designers. Only the biggest organizations are going to have a continuous appetite for brand design, but every startup at some point in their journey, when they know themselves well enough, they will need a visual vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right. And there are legions of people who have figured out I can be that kind of like doula or midwife for this startup, that it's like it's time for them to develop their brand identity. I'll do that. And it's like, how many deliveries a month are you doing? Yeah. Right. Versus like how stable would their job be at a company that is maybe Series D and the CMO realizes next quarter marketing budget is going to get slashed by 40%.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, Kim, what do you think that it's something inherent about the nature of design work that makes it easier for designers to be going independent? Or is it just that, designers are first to this trend that's going to catch up with everyone?
I know what monthly design subscription you're talking about. I have seen that trending a lot for sure. And I would say I've spent more years being an independent than being in-house for sure. So I am a little biased coming into this answer. I think that a lot of design work, there are, depending on the scope of the work, it comes down to like how much you can take on as a designer. I think it's very doable to be an independent designer, to come in. There, in fact, were a lot more UX contract work opportunities available. I remember the last time that was really searching for new opportunities and things like that. And they're often favorable, like chunks of time, like 3 months, uneven. I think the longest was maybe 9 months or like 6 months. But more oftentimes than not, when you go into those contracts, the timeline sometimes ends up getting extended and extended outward. And that's a really great opportunity that I've seen a lot of UX designers start off with at first. Maybe it's really hard to get into companies, but UX contract work will be the first area that they actually will get work within. And in fact, that may give them the taste, and then from there continue on to just do that contract work, because it does pay very well. And for one, UX strategy would be one of those jobs that is often just contracted out and needed by a lot of different companies, really, no matter the size.
And are you seeing, you're talking about like how you've been in the creative space for over a decade now. You've seen so much change. A lot of that conversation has been changed around what's changing, because of AI. Are you seeing that there is a shift happening more towards designers going independent, or is this just sort of like a fluke? Like, is it something that just a few voices in the design community have become loud advocating for designers to go independent, or is it actually something that you've seen shift in the decade plus that you've been in the space?
I would say there have been a lot of technology shifts that make people, that have made designers interested in these certain niches, that make them more excited about becoming independent designers for that specific niche. So I was mentoring for some time at a UX bootcamp, and at that time I had designers really interested in Web3 and creating Web3 projects around that, and starting off with Web3 companies at that time. Where they are currently, the company that they started off with, I'm not too sure of, but that's an example of just like, I want to niche down. Maybe I don't want to go to Bang or what have you, and instead I want to start off with something I'm like ultimately interested in, see where I go from there. So like, I think that's one example. I think right now in terms of AI, I think a lot of designers are pretty excited about not only thinking of Bang as one place to work at. And maybe that's not the goal anymore for a lot of designers. Maybe they want to work within different, like smaller companies that are just starting out with a new product and things like that. So I feel like I'm noticing more of those trends. I think because of where some of these companies have taken AI or what they may be doing with AI, that I've noticed a lot of designers sort of look elsewhere into smaller companies and get started within like those areas first.
Interesting. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We love this conversation. I wish that we could like go a little bit longer. We're at time. Thank you so much, Kim. We really
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate it. And
Truly.
I wish like there's more time to just hear about like you as a person, because I love like how much depth there is to how you started off to where you are right now. And for those of you that don't know, maybe we could just spend like, do you want to spend like just a couple minutes just talking about like how you got to where you got to, and any parting advice for founders working with designers?
Sure, yeah. I, it's always hard to start this off, but first, I've been a creative for forever, for a very long time. I started off in photography, then put out into freelancing for photography, graphic design, and a really multidisciplinary creative. And I found UX through trying my hand at software engineering, and I failed terribly at it, but fell in love with UX and started heading into UX, and that leads me to my present day. Still very much interested in emerging technologies and always learning. And I think in terms of designers working within software design, which feels a lot better to say than UX design or product design specifically, feels a lot more appropriate. But it's what's really important for designers is to make sure that they are staying up to date with the changing technologies, how it can be applied, and for founders that are looking for designers, how are designers doing their due diligence with these new technologies? Are they aware of it? Do they know enough about it? What are some, like, I think most recently what I've noticed is with some of these AI products, some of their interviews are very technology specific. And what they're looking for designers, and this is something that I've noticed, is how designers can handle these situations with the current technology that some of these companies are utilizing for these new AI technologies. So I think the homework is to be done on the founder's part and on the designer's part to know what questions to ask for your designers and how they may be helpful when designing the products that you are thinking of building, and for designers to do their homework within that new space and be aware of the constraints and, you know, the AI, ethics, biases, a lot more. And yeah, I think that we're both growing together, and it's a really exciting opportunity to just start building and designing for a lot of these new products.
Amazing.
I love that last part
Yeah.
around like founders must assess designers in the right way versus just like, oh, I saw your pixel porn on Dribble. You're
Yeah.
hired. Great job.
Right. Diligencing how the designers do their diligences. That's a
Yeah.
really interesting thought.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you. Thank you both.